Hello, welcome back to the channel. And the eagle-eyed among you will have noticed that I am not in the woods. That's right, this week I'm at Greencraft headquarters, aka my shed. It's very blowy out there again, and it does mess a bit with the sand, plus I've got a lot of other stuff going on. So this week, well, you're here. You get to see it if you haven't seen it before. I know some of you who've been with me for a long time will know the shed very, very well indeed. But there is still a lot to get through. I've got a cracking little project, which is a bit of barkcraft, but possibly not as you know it. And we're also going to do that all-important draw. Let's find out if you are the lucky winner. Now, the term barkcraft to most people would mean, well, something like this. Something made of birch bark. And we've seen lots of examples of it. Ray Mears on his program showed us how to make a match case and various other containers. And a lot of people have had a go at that. Some of us have also made folded birch containers where there are a much larger one using different barks, things like ash, sycamore, willow, etc. And these are folded ones with a strengthened rim around the top. And again, it's barkcraft. Some will have also done the woven barkcraft where you cut bark into strips and then you plait it together and weave it together to make containers. And all of those things are what we term as barkcraft. Now, there is another type of barkcraft, and it's one that over here in the UK, probably we are not so aware of, but certainly over in the States, it's a bit more commonplace, and quite a few people seem to work with it from what I can find. The only reason I knew about it was that I was out many years ago with a group of people being led around by Mors Kahansky, and we went around on a foraging walk, and we'd stopped at a big fallen tree, and he plucked off a piece of this bark, which seemed to come off very easily. And he just said, "Oh, this is cottonwood," or pop the bark, and he put it in his pocket. I thought, "Oh, I'll grab a piece of this." I also grabbed a piece of this bark. And it wasn't until much later in the day when I saw him talking to a couple of people. And as he was talking, he was just slicing away. He wasn't even looking at what he was carving, but it was a piece of this bark, and it appeared to carve really, really easily. At the end of that conversation, he handed the person that he was talking to this most beautiful Native American Indian head that he'd carved, complete with the full feather headdress, everything on it. And it was a truly stunning piece of work. The most stunning thing was the fact that he hadn't looked at it the whole time he was carving it. He just was carrying on a conversation. That then gave me an idea, because I'd also grabbed this little piece of bark, and I thought I'll have a go and see what I can create. And that item that I created while I was there doing that was this. And a lot of you might recognise it. It is a little pendant with a leaf, and that must have been, I don't know, 18, 20 years ago. And I've worn it ever since. And I had a little bit of the bark left over, and I've carved a few other things from it. But it was just a great project to do. So what I thought I'd do in this video is share how I've done this with you, and also the type of bark that I've used. And I'll explain more about that in a moment. So the first thing you are going to need is a piece of that bark. Well, you're probably not going to find a piece quite like that one. I certainly never have. The fissures down the side were very deep. The bark must have been a good 2 to 3 inches thick in places. And as I said, I've never come across another one like it. I have experimented with other barks though. Scots pine bark, it looks like it's going to work, and quite often you can find pine barks that will come off in sheets on fallen trees. And it's okay, but it never lasts particularly long, and it's very prone to snap. A couple of ones which are much better, and with all the windy weather we've had recently, a lot of them are being blown over because the willows and the alders, if they get any damage to them, they seem to rot quite quick. And with the high winds, those trees seem to get quite badly battered. And so a lot of them at the moment, certainly around where I am, are having to be taken down for safety reasons. And quite often what you find is at the bottom of the tree, you will be able to find sections that you can lift off. Quite often the tree is damaged, diseased, whatever, and so the bark comes off pretty easily and you're not damaging a healthy tree. So here I've got a few different ones. This one's a bit of alder. It's got quite a nice yellowy colour running through it. The back of it is fairly flat, and it's reasonably stable. Not as prone to flaking, etc., as a Scots pine. The one that I really like is willow. And willow comes off quite well. Got quite a nice woody back to it. The colour inside is quite a good red colour, and it cleans up quite well. On older trees that are damaged, you can get bits that are quite thick, quite fissured. You can see this one here is about a good 1.5 inches thick. So willow makes quite a good option to go for. So as well as your bark, there's a couple of other things you're going to need. Obviously you are going to need a knife, and I've gone for, because you're doing quite a lot of detail work and we're going to be working on quite small projects, a very small fine blade. I think the one I've gone for is a little Frost's 106. I've got a couple of them, I've had them for years, but that very small blade geometry is ideal for this sort of project. You're also going to need a pencil so you can draw your design onto the bark once the surface is prepared. You're also going to need some sandpaper. I've gone for quite a heavy grit, plus I've also gone for some of the very fine grit, like a wet and dry paper, and that's for finishing the surface. You're also going to want a little bit of oil. Now I use just walnut oil. One, it's easily available, you can get it in a supermarket. Two, it doesn't affect your skin if you get it on you, and it's a bit nicer. It's not quite so chemically as some of the other ones that are out there. And then finally, you're also going to want a little bit of thonging for hanging it on. This one, I think this is a bit of 2mm. You can see I've put it for a very long time because this was a natural colour to start with. You can also get 1mm. Anything thicker than that, and it looks a bit too heavy. So either 1 or 2mm leather thonging, and you get that off of eBay. I'm going to get started on this. And the first thing I want to do is, well, I'm going to prepare my surface. Now, what I want ideally is a section that's, because I'm only making a little pendant and not anything bigger, a section that's not terribly wide, probably no more than about 2 fingers thick. As you can see with this piece, there's a fissure running right up through the middle. So what I'm going to do is just break that to give me a piece like so. And then the first thing I'm going to do is, well, I want to get both sides smooth. So I want to get the back evened off to get rid of some of this woody surface on there. But also, I want to cut back this rough surface to give myself a smooth surface to work on. So there we go. That is the work shaved down. It's going to be fairly narrow and it's going to be fairly short, so there's no need for me to smooth off this end. My next task that I'm going to do is I want to bore a little hole in there. Now, I could use the point of my knife to bore through, or I could use one of these. And that's what I'm going to use. And I'm just going to drill it through very carefully to make a nice little hole in there. So there we go. That's the little hole drilled in there. I'm just going to tidy that up with the point of my knife. There we go. Now, the reason I put the hole in first is whatever design I make, because it's going to be a pendant, it's going to be suspended from a cord. So whatever design I choose to do needs to be centered around that hole. Now I'm going to make a leaf like the one I'm wearing. So I'm going to make the top of it where the stem of the leaf goes over. That's going to be where the little hole is. That's going to be my next job, is to draw the design on there that I'm going to carve. That's my leaf shape. You can just about make it out on there. And all I'm going to do now is just cut around there. Now, because this is such lovely soft stuff, I won't say it's like carving balsa wood, but it's not far off. This doesn't take very long. So the front edge is done. Now for the top edge, I've got to trim these bits out here. And that takes, well, there's going to be a few cuts where you're cutting towards yourself. So you've got to be really super careful. But as long as you work steady, because this is quite nice and soft and because you're using a nice sharp knife, it's really safe to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to put a couple of stop cuts in this side, like so. And then I'm going to do cutting back the other way. And then I'll just repeat. Like so. Already you can see I'm starting to get the shape out on that side. I now just need to repeat on the other side. So again, I'll put a little stop cut in and then trim back. Yeah, it's starting to come together already. Now I'm nearly completely through. All I'm going to do next is, well, I'm just going to put a little cut across that face there. Like so. And then I can just snap it straight off. Now all I've got to do now is start putting a bit of detail in there. So there you go, you can see I've roughed that shape out. I've cut that one side in there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the point of my knife and I'm going to score along where that pencil line comes underneath. I'm then going to cut in from that edge to that line to act as a stop cut. I don't want to go too thin on the side, but I do want to take it in just a little. So there we go. That is the top of the stem of the leaf coming over and curling back behind, but still leaving us that hole. What I'm going to do next is just round these edges off, and I'm going to put a couple of little indents in on the side. So there it is. I'll put the little indents around the side. I'm not far off now. Now my next task is I want to prepare this surface just so it's a little bit smoother. So I'm going to almost get it to the finishing point. For that, I'm going to use my sandpapers. I'll take it off with the heavier stuff to start with, and then I'm going to make it a nice smooth surface using the very, very fine stuff. And then I'm just rounding off some of those slightly more angular edges. What I can also do at this point is where these are, just using the edge of the paper and just get in there, particularly if it's folded. Just use that to help highlight the detail. So there it is, all roughed off with the heavier duty paper. What I'm now going to do is just do it the very fine stuff, just to give it that nice, very, very smooth finish, which will also help to bring out the grain once it's oiled. Now for that last little bit, you saw I just put in a bit of pencil detail. What I'm going to do is use the point of my knife just to go over that pencil line, and I'll go over it once, I'll then go over it a second time, but I'll just change the angle slightly, and what it'll do is it'll just lift out a tiny little fillet along that line just to help show up that detail. And there it is. And it's pretty much done. Didn't take long. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in this. Now what I normally do is I just pop a little bit of oil on a saucer or in the bottom of a cup, whatever, and I just soak this in it. But for this video, I'm just going to very quickly wipe it over so you can see how good this looks once it's been oiled. So there you go, a little tiny pendant, and they don't take very long to do, as you can see, a matter of a few minutes. And it's a great little project that you can do out in the woods, and it will give you something, well, it lasts as long as my one has. Yeah, it'll last a good old while, and it's something that will always remind you of that time in the woods. They also make great gifts, and you don't just have to do a leaf. Well, not this style of leaf, you can do any sort you like. I've done loads. Here's a few. And they're great fun to do. And as I said, they make great gifts. I know a lot of you are going to be going, oh, what's happened to those ones? Well, it's one of those I might keep, but there's also, I think, a good few of those might go out to some of my patrons. So there you go, a little bit of bark carving, a little bark carving pendant, and it's, yeah, it's a great bit of fun. Doesn't take very long, doesn't need a lot of kit, and you are going to absolutely love it. So there you go, give that one a go. So the materials are readily available, particularly with all the wind we're having at the moment and the number of damaged trees we're getting. Get out there, check out some of that bark. Now, the next bit, that all-important draw for my little raffle that I ran through Buy Me a Coffee. Now, I had loads and loads of you entered it. Thank you all very much. Thank you to the guys who not only bought me one coffee, in some cases, several people bought me 3, very keen to win that bundle. And it was a cracking bundle of stuff. Also entered in there were my patrons as well. And what I did, you know, Rob Evans styly, was I printed all their email addresses off and I put them on a little bit of paper, cut them into strips, and then I'm going to draw one out. So here we go, the grand draw. Actually, I'll give it a really good shake first. Here we go. Taking the lid off. We are now. I've drawn one out. Let's see who it's going to be. It could be you. So this will be your email address. So this one is, I think it's lazyass@gmail.com. I'll put it on the screen there and I'll email you. You can let me have your address if I haven't already got it, because I know quite a few of the guys are also customers of mine, people I've sent stuff out to in the past. So, Lazy Ass, well done, congratulations, and a massive thank you to everybody else who entered. So thank you again to all of the guys who entered that draw. If you enjoyed this video, then remember to give me a thumbs up, and if you liked it that much, pop into the little link box down below and pop over and buy me a coffee or a tea, as the case may be. You can also, while you're down there, have a look at my Etsy shop. Over there you will find my little survival necklaces at the moment. They're also the Greencraft patches, the new Velcro ones, and there are also some of my little guide haversacks. If you weren't lucky enough to pick one up on the draw, there are still a few in stock. There's also going to be going up next week some of the same ones, guide haversacks, but this time in olive green. Now, a couple of other little bits of news. I've got another couple of videos coming up, but it won't be for a couple of weeks. I am away next weekend on holiday, so I will not have time to film or indeed edit. So it's going to be a couple of weeks gap. When I do get back, I've got a cracking video coming up, and it's all about bargain priced kit, but this time it's not stuff that's army surplus. It's all the bushcraft clothing, same fabrics, the same features that all the big boys charge a lot of money for. But in this particular case, you're not going to be charged a fortune. It's reasonably priced stuff that works very, very well. I've been trying out for a while, and I think it's stuff that you guys would definitely be interested in. So definitely keep your eyes on the channel for that one. Also, a little bit of news. I get asked quite a lot, you know, do you do any of the festivals, etc.? Well, I used to a long time ago, and I don't do the bushcraft show, and I don't do the wilderness gathering anymore. However, I am going to be at a new one, something called the Wild in Us Festival, and that one is first weekend in July, something like 5th, 6th, 7th of July, and it's down in the West Country. I think it's somewhere in the Shepton Mallet area. Anyway, there will be more details of that one as it comes. Anyway, I think that's everything. I've been Neil, and until next time, stay safe in the woods.